Stepping into the unknown is a critical theme in the Willis Resilience Expedition. In order to take that first step with some surety of safety and success, it pays to be well prepared. Today we're speaking with Gareth Bateman from Alert 24, Willis's security risk and crisis management practice, on how to prepare for journeys into extreme conditions, and also how Alert 24 are keeping a watchful eye over Parker and the rest of the Willis Resilience Expedition team. Welcome, Gareth. Nice to see you. You recently wrote an article for Willis Wire called "Journeys into the Unknown: Planning and Preparing to Ensure Success," where you outline the need for effective planning. What aspects of planning are essential when going into unknown territory?
I think there's a couple of key things that it's important to identify up front. And a lot of research can be done, as the team would have done in this case, to identify what the key risks are. And often if you've identified those things up front, it's very easy to prepare for them properly. What you don't want to be is in a position where you get caught out by something that surprises you. So the trick is with these things is to try and identify all the things you can up front and put in sensible measures to reduce the risk with those aspects, and then to try and think about the things, the unknown unknowns, if you like, and have sensible plans in place, again, for dealing with those. Yeah,
so let's talk about some of those unknowns. What are some of the challenges that a team faces when they're entering into unknown territory?
Well, if we use this environment, I mean, obviously the guys are facing pretty extreme weather conditions. They've got a hard and very tough physical challenge to contend with, and it would be a difficult challenge pulling those sleds over that kind of distance anyway, regardless of the terrain. And then you've got all the unknown factors, things like illness creeping in on the team, equipment failing, maybe loss of communications back, or things like the terrain they're crossing causing havoc, like crevasses or other kind of conditions like that, which they're not going to be able to spot until they encounter them on the day. And obviously if you know about those things up front, then you can do some things to reduce the risks. And examples might be practicing what they're going to do if they lose a piece of equipment, or how they're going to, have they done all the right first aid training and medical training so that they can deal with minor ailments and illnesses or injuries whilst they're out there. Because if those things aren't prepared for in advance, you don't have the right kit, then those could be showstoppers. Whereas if you thought about them up front, you're in a position to deal with it and to keep going on the expedition.
And I just want to pivot for a minute and talk about the business aspect and how your background applies to that. Is this the same thing for clients going into new markets as they face new and unknown risks?
Yeah, absolutely. The principles are completely the same. So, I mean, we do a lot of work with clients who are looking at moving into new territories, some of the emerging market economies where they've got new opportunities for investment, or they're going to maybe offshore some of their manufacturing operation. And those kind of circumstances present very similar problems. So, if the clients analyse them properly up front and prepare for them, then they can reduce the risks to their business, very sensibly before they encounter some of the problems. And some examples might be things like sending expatriate staff out to work in, say, Africa or the Middle East, where they're not really familiar with the culture, they're not really sure what to do in how to protect their families, and some of the risks are very different from what they face maybe in a Western environment. So, we work with some of the clients on training and putting in place sensible education and analysis before they go, so that they're well prepared to face those challenges when they get there.
And then you also help in terms of contingency plans if things do deteriorate.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I suppose from my military background, that's a very important aspect of what we did. Undoubtedly, on a lot of military operations, when there's somebody on the other side who you're fighting against, then things tend to go wrong quite quickly, or it's very hard to plan for every single outcome. So the skill set that you develop is contingency planning, where you analyse, what's the most likely thing to go wrong and what's the worst case thing that can go wrong. And by analysing those two sets of circumstances, you can put in place plans to defend against them. And it's very similar for a business. So, they might identify that the reputation risks might be the most important thing to the business, or the most likely aspect is that their people might face high crime rates or high threat of terrorist incidents. And if you identify those up front, then it's very easy to prepare the staff to deal with those kind of incidents, so that they go to these environments reassured and equipped with the right skills to deal with these kind of scenarios.
Because we're really talking about people risk. If an organization wants to transition and move into a new marketplace where they have no presence, until then, they're going to need to make sure that their people are safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's been all sorts of issues in the past with people maybe not feeling confident enough to move to a new environment, not feeling like they're equipped to do it, or getting to these environments and then finding that there are other risks or difficult scenarios that they're not necessarily equipped to face. So these things have benefits on several levels. Firstly, giving people the right skill sets and reassurance to go in the first place, and secondly, equipping them so that if they face new challenges in these environments, they understand how to deal with them and how to get through them.
And speaking of helping people, I know Alert 24 has been involved with actually watching over Parker and the rest of the team. Tell me how you guys are doing this and what kind of things are you looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's what we call a sort of life signs check in this case. So we're giving the guys a reporting procedure. So every day we receive a situation report, a sit rep, back from the guys on the ice. They send that in and it covers a load of sort of key headings. So we look at their equipment state, the condition of the truck, the condition of the skiers, their welfare, what supplies that they have, and any issues like illness or injury, and then finally communications. And then last of all, we look at the plans for the next 24 hours and what they're going to be encountering. And that way my team at the operations centre, which is based out in Henley-on-Thames, we're situation aware of what the guys are facing, and we can keep a track on a sort of accumulation of minor what might be minor issues, and have the experience to monitor those things and make a decision if they're becoming a significant accumulation that we need to flag up or do something about.
Sounds like a fundamental exercise in risk management.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a really tough challenge that the guys are involved in, so it's been a pleasure to be able to work with them in advance of them deploying, and now to be able to support them while they're going through the toughest part of the challenge, trying to break the record.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for keeping Parker and the team safe, and thanks for talking to us today. Very interesting.
Thank you very much for having me.